May I have your attention, please? The following is not the real Jeff Foxworthy.
If you create more splits than a divorce lawyer, you might be a beekeeper. If you go to the car wash and the attendant there says, "I can't get rid of these orange spots on your vehicle," you might be a beekeeper. If you refer to your very large family as a swarm, you might be a beekeeper.
Welcome to Bee Love Beekeeping, presented by our good buds over at Man Lake. We are so happy you're here today as we're headed down to the Southern Hemisphere for a really fun discussion with a passionate beekeeper who, of all things, doesn't like honey? What? One of the most fun things about doing this show is getting to know beekeepers from all over the world. It's amazing how much we have in common when it's all centered around the love of bees. But first, let's go to some headlines. Last month, we had a story about Africanized bees killing 3 horses at a farm in Texas. Now, more recently, another family in Texas had all 9 of their chickens killed by bees. The Stavanoha family in Bryan, Texas, was left in shock after a swarm of bees turned aggressive in their backyard. Here's a quote from Jennifer Stavanoha. "I get a text from my husband and he says, 'I think bees are killing our chickens.' So I put the baby down and I ran outside and most of the chickens were already dead. And there was just a swarm of bees stinging all of our chickens." So the poor family lost their entire flock in minutes, and now they're wondering what kind of bees would have caused this type of destruction. She said, "European honeybees don't normally attack. You want them in your yard. But the idea of this Africanized colony, or bad genetics or whatever it was, is that they get aggressive and they go after you. Normal honeybees don't do these things." So, local beekeeper and professional bee remover Chris Barnes was called in. He said this type of behavior most likely has to do with territorial behaviors in bees. The chickens were likely caught in the crossfire of 2 colonies fighting for hive space. His advice? The first thing is to just leave them alone. If bees are attacking, or attacking like in this case, distance is your friend. They're not going to be aggressive as a general rule, and the benefit of having the bees around far outweighs the fear that people have now. Even though the beehive is not on their property, the Stavanoha family said that they're taking steps to remove the hive. They also plan to rebuild their chicken flock. Good for them. Now let's go across the pond in Euro news. Spanish beekeepers staged an eye-catching protest in Valencia to plead for financial aid. Okay, this one you got to see the picture. It just looks a little nuts. And I'm quoting again from the article, "Spanish beekeepers are taking to the streets this weekend to demand urgent help for their, quote, dying sector." Led by Farmers Union, COAG, honey sector workers are demanding aid to help with the unaffordable rise in production costs. They're also protesting against import of low-quality honey from countries such as China, which they say is flooding the market and causing a price crisis. In recent years, a record amount of honey has been imported to Spain. So here's what they did. 300 beekeepers got together in a rally in front of the Valencia courthouse, holding signs that read, "SOS, beekeeping in danger of extinction." Now here's the best part. Protesters then drenched themselves in honey from head to toe to draw attention to their cause. So why are the beekeepers protesting in Spain? They say that recent high temperatures and varroa mites have reduced Spain's honey harvest by half. And like other industries, beekeeping has suffered surging costs due to the war in Ukraine. The amount of aid currently allocated for beekeepers does not cover even 1 kilo of food per hive, they say, and their colonies require about 18 kilograms of honey or sugar syrup to survive the winter. Protesters are demanding increased quantity and quality controls on honey imports and more transparent labeling on the origin of honey sold in Spain. Go for it, guys. And lastly, here in the U.S., a headline, EPA proposes to register new pesticide for varroa mite control. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, has proposed to register 1 technical and 2 end-use products containing the new active ingredient Vatiscana, hope I said that right, a double-stranded RNA for control against varroa mites in honeybee hives. The EPA is prioritizing pesticide applications that target varroa mites to provide beekeepers with a variety of tools to combat the pest. According to them, no risks of concern to human health or the environment were identified. When used according to the label, risks to bees are not expected because Vatiscana is highly specific to the targeted gene within varroa mites. Additionally, in March of 2025, the EPA registered a new varroicide product containing iglutamic acid, an active ingredient that has not previously been included in registered products for use in beehives. The agency also intends to register another product containing oxalic acid, a slow-release varroicide within beehives, by July of 2025. Together, these 4 end-use products are expected to provide new tools, including novel active ingredients, for control of varroa mites in beehives. Now, hey, just a quick favor, if you haven't yet followed or subscribed to the show, please do so now, and be sure to share it with a friend. Also, if you want to be part of the show, be sure to reach out to Eric at beelovebeekeeping.com with your ideas for guests, your wild and crazy beekeeping stories, and your suggestions for the not real Jeff Foxworthy on why you might be a beekeeper. Thank you for all that. Now let's head south for today's interview. Hey, welcome to the show today, Sarah Cross. And Sarah, I'm going to ask you to answer something that I'm going to have people try to guess where you're from.
Oh.
Okay? I want to know how you got started in beekeeping.
All right.
Keep it short because then we're going to ask the quiz.
No problem. So my start is quite different. So most people in any level of beekeeping, most start as hobbyists, with a couple of hives in the backyard. I have a Bachelor of Science degree from university, and I started in insects in general. So not actually the bees. And then I worked at lots of very cool places around my country. And then I came back to my general sort of home area and picked up a job at an apiculture science organisation. I had never opened a beehive in my life. The very first time that I put on a bee suit and did that amazing thing where you open the hive and see all the bees for the first time was in my job interview.
Wow.
Those silly people gave me that job.
Good thing you didn't panic and scream and run away.
Yeah. 100%. They said, congratulations, here's 250 beehives to look after.
Oh, no.
Like, I literally, my start in beekeeping was literally thrown in the deep end. So I started big.
Okay.
And now I'm all the way back down to having 5 hives in the backyard. So.
All right, quiz time. Everybody can answer to whoever's next to them. Where is Sarah from? Yes, New Zealand. And I'm not going to embarrass myself. Tell us what part of New Zealand.
Oh, okay. The language of New Zealand, which is Māori. And so I am from New Zealand, which natively is called Aotearoa. I am from a region called the Waikato, and my hometown is called Ngaruawahia.
That was the part I wanted to say and then didn't dare. I embarrassed myself enough on this show already. I don't need to start off that way today. Anyway, it's really fun to have you on. You are our first guest from New Zealand, so congratulations on that.
That's exciting.
And one of the reasons I was interested in New Zealand is because somebody recently was asking about Manuka honey. I want to talk about that first, and then we're going to jump into a little bit of more of your beekeeping journey and what in the world it's like keeping bees there. Oh, I had one other question, geography quiz question. Where are you from Auckland?
Yeah, how far away from Auckland? Only like an hour's drive south. So if you know a little bit, there's the big old, what we call the North Island, and Auckland's quite near the top. We are literally kind of smack in the middle.
All righty. What do you know about Manuka honey?
I do not know a lot about those cool little chemical jargony acronyms we hear about, MGOs and GMO, whatever they're called, UMFs, only because my apiculture science background was working on the bees. So it's a funny little thing to get your head around, but my job has never, in all the years of me doing this, has never been to make honey. Which sounds weird because I just say, oh, I'm a beekeeper. But my job has always been about the bees themselves. But I will tell you one of the reasons why Manuka is hard to get, hard to make, hard for your bees to get. So little old New Zealand is quite a long country. So our temperature gradient goes sort of down the country like that. And Manuka flowers only when the temperature gets warm enough. So we have in New Zealand here, we have what we call Manuka chasers. And they will move their hives in at the top of the country when the Manuka is first flowering, and they will have to move those every couple of weeks. And a bit like migratory beekeeping, and they have to go all the way down the country. It's not common to do that because New Zealand is a teeny little country. It's not a common thing to do. And so it's a lot of, money and outreach to get all that time, all the effort, all the manpower. Some of them even helicopter them in, the fancy ones. So that's one of the reasons why Manuka costs so much. And also the bees themselves don't particularly like it. It's not actually a favourite. Yeah, it's not actually. So
they must drop them in where there's nothing else for them to forage on.
That's what they really try to do.
Wow.
And I'll tell you another weird little fact, but back in the days, Manuka was literally the pest plant. It was the scrub. It was when you bought a block of land, you automatically cut and burned all of the Manuka because it was an absolute waste. We used to use it as firewood. And now there are people out there selling little Manuka plants for thousands of dollars because people want their whole property planted in it. So it's that complete supply and demand thing where suddenly they've found this magical honey that comes from Manuka, and it's completely flipped. Completely. It's quite odd to think about, yeah. We used to slash and burn it, and now we plant it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Now, just so we can get an idea of what it's like beekeeping in your area, because as we all know, beekeeping is local. If I live 25 miles from here, it would be different than where it is where I live. So give us an idea of what the climate is like all year round.
So just like you mentioned, local. New Zealand itself is classed as a temperate climate. So we're not having any massive minus 25s kind of, Alaska type stuff. And again, we don't have highs like Australia. So here where I am in the Waikato, our summertime, I'm going to say I'm probably going to have to convert this to Fahrenheit because I don't know. But in the summertime here, we would be absolutely gasping and dying if it got to 30 degrees Celsius.
30 degrees Celsius is 86 Fahrenheit. So it's always below 86 Fahrenheit, okay?
We would, and we are sweating, okay? And then here where I am in the Waikato would only, -2 is probably the worst winter day we would have. Sorry, winter night that we would have.
And that's 28 degrees for us. Wow, that is very mild.
Yeah, it's exactly temperate. It's not very, yeah. And even between the days and the nights is not a big change as well. And again, that's here in the Waikato. If you go much further down south in New Zealand, they definitely get the big snows and things like that, but it doesn't snow here. It's not ever that cold. So very temperate. So yeah, very different. So I see amazing people overseas wrapping their hives and getting covered in snow, and I'm like, nope, don't have to do that.
But do you have pests, warm climate type of pests?
We have a lot less than most countries. We do not have small hive beetle, which I know I see in Australia, which is if that comes over here, we're in big trouble. We have had varroa destructus since the year 2000. So we've had 25 years of dealing with that. We have AFB, so American foul brood, but we do not have European foul brood. So we've got a few less than some people. So yeah.
And other things like deformed wing virus.
Yes.
Any of those viruses, yeah.
100% deformed wings. Deformed wings is the main one. We do have acute paralysis, but none of those are rampant sort of anywhere. Chalk brood, because we are a temperate, quite damp, we will sometimes get a bit of that coming through. But again, nothing that's massively damaging. Of course, like most of the world, varroa is, of course, our number one bane of our existence.
Yeah. How do you deal with it there? Maybe we can learn something from you.
We definitely have moved into the realm of integrated pest management because, again, like most of the country, just throwing in the strips and taking them out in however many weeks is not working like it used to. So, yeah, a lot of all the other, you might have heard New Zealand, we have this number 8 wire, is called, it's like we like to make things, we like to figure stuff out. And there's lots of people here in New Zealand who have made their own little bits and pieces to do with, a lot of it's to do with oxalic acid and different ways that we treat with those. There's also a lot of physical, very cool little physical things that a lot of New Zealand engineer beekeeper fellas are doing. One of them is sort of quite a specific sort of queen trapping system to make the hive broodless for a little bit so then you can treat and get all the phoretic mites and things like that. So definitely lots of, and even in the science industry, we've got quite a few people doing insane stuff with like mRNA and things like that of the actual varroa itself to try and stop its breeding cycle and things like that. But these are very much years and years sort of to come through. But we definitely know as beekeepers that we cannot do what we used to do because it's not working. So,
and that's a big thing that we're learning here. Again, we should already know it. But you've probably heard about the big bee die-off this year in the States. Have you heard about it?
Oh, 100%. It's very scary.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
And just a few days ago, well, depending on the date that this podcast comes out, but from when we're recording, it was just a week or so ago, we got some results from some of the first research that's being done. And what they're finding is 2 things. Some of the viruses that are passed by varroa, those are what's killing the hives. But some of the treatment that has been used for a long time is just not very effective anymore. It's been used over and over and over so much, and, it's not working so good. We better give a higher dose and then a higher dose. Well, now it's not working anymore. So the IPM that you're talking about, which everybody knows the term, we all have to do a better job of putting that into, just part of how we beekeep. And you mentioned brood breaks.
Yeah.
But what is this wire you were talking about?
It's just one of the amazing beekeeping habits is just, I can't remember what he calls it, sorry. But it's basically just securing the queen into one specific area. So not a tiny little queen cage like we do for introductions, but just sort of a trap to hold her in there. So she's just on that one frame so that then she can basically cause a brood break and be able to treat the hives as well.
Quick break to thank our presenting sponsor, Man Lake. I've found that Man Lake has absolutely everything I need to take care of the health of my bees. Mite checks and treatments, beetle management, hive health and nutrition, pollen substitutes, food and feeders, and the knowledge base to help you know how to use it, including Bella, their AI beekeeping genius. Just look for her icon in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen at manlakeltd.com. While you're there, don't forget your discount code MLBLOVE10. It's in the show notes for $10 off your first $100 purchase.
Can I just ask, sorry, I'm just going to butt in and ask you a question here. In terms of the chemicals that you use in the US, is there really only sort of one chemical class that you use for the varroa treatments?
What do you mean by class?
Well, so, okay, here in New Zealand, we're very, very stressful to say that so we treat in the spring and the autumn, and we always tell our new beekeepers to rotate those treatments. So we have 2 different chemical classes, I think, and I'm going to blow myself in trouble because I haven't done this for a while, like fluvalinate and flumethrin, and there's a third one, which I can't remember, amitraz or apitraz, something. And they are in 2 different chemical classes. And so we always tell our beekeepers to swap those around so they're not always getting, like you mentioned, always getting the same chemical thrown at them. Is that not something that you do, or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, for example, formic acid can come in a couple of different ways. So, you've got to use that one time and not the other kind of formic another time, but something completely different.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, we just need to do a better job of.
Oh, yeah. Because as you know, some things when we treat are easier than others. And sometimes if you're a bit like me and you're a bit lazy, you sometimes just go, I'll just do the easy, which is not obviously the best way to beekeep, but I fully understand that. So, yeah.
So you mentioned oxalic acid, which is very popular here. In what ways do you use it?
The least common way is the dribble, as in physically mixed in with sugar syrup, and you just dribble it over in the seams on top of the bees. Very common is what we call the staples, which are soaked in like a cardboard strip, which you then put down over the top of the frames like that, so down in like a staple form. Another one that's gaining a lot of traction now is the fogging, so having a little vaporizer and blasting the fog through there. Those are the three that I can think of right now. But the staples are really, really common now, and people just leave them in all the time while still doing the other sort of synthetic chemical ones at the same time. So, yeah.
In fact, one of the sponsors of the show, one of their products is Varoxan, which is exactly what you're talking about.
None of ours have brand names.
It's quite new.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite new, and the results are sounding very, very positive.
And that's the thing. It's just like, say, IPM, you've got to kind of do them all together.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole brood break thing, I'm a big fan of. That's one reason I love splits. As I try to think about positive things of the very cold winters where I specifically am, that's one of the things that we get a positive out of that winter. If the bees make it through, they've had a brood break.
But have you talked to anyone from Australia lately?
I have, but it's been a little while.
I only say that because Australia has only just got varroa.
Yeah, just in the last couple of years.
Yeah, only just. And that's exactly what I'm really worried about because I don't know if you've ever been to Australia in winter. It's not winter. Their winter is like my spring day. Like it's not cold at all. There is no way that those bees would ever have any kind of brood break in terms of being cold. So it really worries me how the varroa is going to get through Australia. It's actually quite scary. So that's just a little worrying thing that
They sure went crazy trying to kill it all off at first. That was unsuccessful.
Yeah, that was...
Now they just need to buckle down like the rest of us.
Yeah.
But I feel bad for them. I don't wish varroa on anybody.
No, exactly. And they held it off for so long. It was so fantastic. But yeah, it's really quite scary to watch over the ditch.
Okay, I'm going to backtrack now. What is it like getting a job where you have 250 hives to manage and you've just met bees for the very first time? Hello, ladies.
It's just one of those, such a cool memory. And I'm sure lots of people can say that the very first time they might have gone out with a beekeeper and done that big, opening up the hive. And I still can't believe that was in my job interview. Yeah, just so getting thrown in the deep end. And it's cool because, this was my job. So I was opening beehives every single day. But I was taught by an amazing gentleman here in New Zealand, Dr. Mark Goodwin, who was the head of our apiculture and pollination team for many, many years. And he's amazing. He is my mentor. We still hang out together. We've written some books together about beekeeping and stuff, and he's amazing. And I very much learned from him how to get the science sort of across. So it was very cool. Like, don't get me wrong, it was very, very, very cool high-level testing varroa treatments and like toxicology testing, very cool science. But I found that I liked people and stuff more. So that's how I've kind of turned around. And can I tell you something funny that I didn't realize? So if you see any of my social media stuff now, I barely wear suits, no gloves, things like that. But because I started in commercial, I didn't know people did that. that had been my only view. I'd only seen commercial beekeepers fully suited. I shouldn't say making the bees crazy, but a lot of times we had a time limit. This was, I've got to get this done. And so it was a little bit more chaotic. And only years and years later did I see that other side and that lovely, calm hobby side of beekeeping. So yeah, like I say, my intro to beekeeping was a little bit different. So yeah.
It's a big, big difference. And I don't blame the commercial beekeepers. It's their business. They have to do what they have to do. Yeah. Those of us that have the luxury of being able to go slow and take our time.
Yes.
It's such an enjoyable and different kind of experience.
I love it. I absolutely. But it's funny to me that I'd never seen it. I'd never seen anyone open beehives with no gloves on. Like it was this boggling thing when I first saw it. So yeah.
So what made you think you should all of a sudden do this? do the no gloves?
Oh, that took years and years. And I tell you, it's just funny. It was we got a new scientist, and she was from America. And was also doing apiculture. The scale of her beekeeping was a lot smaller. So she was, I would just say, a large hobbyist. And yeah, and she wore a lot less gear, barely wore gloves. And it was just this eye-opening, like, wow, I didn't realize I could do this. And so it was just a very slow process from big gloves to slightly smaller to garden gloves to just step by step, yeah. And now I couldn't think to wear gloves ever again.
Yeah, it's such a different thing.
Yeah, but it's seeing it. You don't know unless you see it, so.
You can gently pull out a frame without squishing anything or anybody, and it makes a big difference in how they react, too, that dexterity
100%.
that you can have. And it takes a little bit of getting used to when you feel a bee walking around on your hand and you look and realize she's probably not even going to sting me. She's just looking around. And if she does, it's not the end of the world. It's okay.
That's such a learned behavior.
So you don't do the 250 hives anymore, right?
No. No. I haven't. I was like, I haven't done that for a while. Sometimes I contract to big commercial places, but I haven't done that for a couple of years now.
But I did look at your website, Sarah Sees Bees.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, it's Sarah Sees Bees, yeah.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about what you do for business, a little bit about your business model.
I do a lot. And I didn't mean to do a lot. Like I say, when I worked in apiculture science, I really did think that was going to be my whole career. You know, that was that I was going to, like lots of scientists in the world, they stay in the same job for 40, 50 years. But then my wonderful boss, Mark Goodwin, he said he had to retire for medical reasons. And I found out that, I shouldn't say I found out, I kind of already knew, but he really was my reason for going to work. I love that man, and I loved our working relationship. And I just found that it just wasn't as fun without him. So when I used to explain our relationship, he had the big ideas and I would get things done. And so I left there and I was a bit sort of floating around for a little bit. And a lot of the clients from where I used to work contacted me personally and said, hey, would you run this for us? So I sort of delved into that. But then I realized that I really like to teach beekeeping. I really like to help people and talk to people about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And it turned up that I started to help a lot of people with things like disease checks, because back where I used to work, we used to breed AFB, American foulbrood, so I know a lot about it, and help them with disease checking and just general hive maintenance and stuff as well. And it just kind of snowballed from there. So I now have a lot of clients that I assist either on a subscription, as in every single month I pop out to their hive with them and have a little look, or just sort of ad hoc when they ring me when something's gone awry. I also hire hives out to people. There are a lot of people that love the idea of bees, but either don't particularly want to get in there or don't have the time, and so I'll manage them for them. But one of the very cool things I do is I take bees in a little observation hive out to schools. I dress up like a bee, like literally with the stripes and the wings and the antennae.
I saw your pants a minute ago.
Yeah, we should. I don't know if the rest of the world needs to see these pants, but they're very stripy. And I dress up completely like a bee, and I will go and take my little bee talk to anything from kindergartens all the way up to retirement villages and everything in between. And we talk about bees, and I explain the life cycle and what they do. And yeah, it's just a very cool way to get, even though I did all this massive high level science, and I've come all the way back down, because I'm sure you know this, Eric, but it amazes me that the majority of the world doesn't even know that our beautiful honeybees are females. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's this, I was doing this massive high level stuff, and yet the general public didn't even know like the bare basics of all the worker bees are females. So I've kind of turned it around, and I do some very cool outreach stuff all around the Waikato. So yeah, fun stuff that I get to do.
So a lot of education.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Are your bees down there very different than ours? Our races, we have Italians and we have Carniolans, etc.
Yeah. There's one that I hear you guys talk about that I'd never heard, is the buckfast, and I assume that's just like a subspecies, because I'd never heard of that.
I think, don't quote me on this. I'm not an expert or a scientist. I believe they're from England, and they're not that easy to get here. They're not very well known here.
Okay, it's just, like I say, it's something I saw on social media, and I'd never heard of that. But you're right, we have Apis mellifera, mainly the Italian and the Carniolans. So, wait.
Okay.
Is that right?
So very similar to here.
Yeah, yeah.
Russians are getting a little bit more popular.
Ah,
Do you have Russians?
I don't think so, no.
And then even though we don't like it, there are a lot of Africanized bees
Oh, no,
in
definitely
the
not.
southern United States, in the real warm climates. And they have bred with a lot of the local bees. And so there's a lot of hybrids, and they're not friendly bees.
No.
As you know, the Italians are little sweethearts.
I definitely breed my bees for calmness. So that's the thing when people talk about being a beekeeper and making honey. I don't care if my bees make honey or not. I use my bees for education. I have to go in there all the time, take them out, put them in an observation hive, or I have people over to my apiaries to show them bees as like an introductory. I will literally breed them for calm niceness. I do not care if they make honey. Like, not my thing. So I don't like honey.
I love honey, but I agree with you. I have seen the best beekeepers are the ones that just do it for the bees.
I don't even like honey, Eric, so...
I don't know if you have, but I have seen people that are like, oh, I want to try beekeeping. And, the first or second year, all their bees die. And they go, I didn't even get any honey. What good is that? So,
Yep.
yeah.
Fully concur.
But they were nice enough to share their varroa with all the rest of us in the meantime.
Touche. Correct. Oh, and that happens everywhere. I mean, I still can't believe we have an apiculture conference every year in little old New Zealand, and all the beekeepers come together. And this is only a couple of years ago, and I remember being there, and a lady came up. I don't know, we were talking something about varroa, and a lady at the conference who paid money and come all the way here for this lovely conference stood there and said, "What's varroa?" And I just, so you're right. We sometimes have a different level of beekeeping.
Did you say, I hope you don't have bees yet? You're just
honest
in your educational phase.
I just walked away. I'm not gonna lie. It was like too much that I had to give this woman in terms of information. So I just walked away.
The alternative would have been too rude.
No, yeah,
All right, Sarah, can you give me one of your favorite wild and crazy beekeeping stories?
I've had many crazy stories. Oh gosh, it's probably not a fun one, but I can tell you the worst. I've been stung on nearly every place imaginable, including on the eyelid twice. You'd think I would learn my lesson, but I didn't. That's not ideal. But the worst I ever had, so we're talking about nice, calm bees. So when I was doing apiculture science, we had to go to a lot of big commercial outfits, not our bees, obviously, someone else's commercial apiaries, to do these trials, testing different things. And we went out to a big New Zealand commercial beekeepers apiary. Super angry bees. My gosh, this was just, everyone was completely suited up, very, very scary. And at this point in time, everyone was in the hives, and I was actually being the scribe. I was writing. I was not even standing that close to the hives. I wasn't even in the hives, but still fully suited. And I was writing with a black pen. And the bees were attacking this moving black pen like their lives depended on it. They really did. But it's one of those things that I tell to my hobby beekeepers about how wearing dark clothes and moving fast attracts the bees. But I still could not understand how insane that they were going for that black moving pen. And those same bees are the ones that got me when someone called me over to have a look in the hive. And I'm fully suited, full veil and everything. And I bent down to have a look at something, and I bent too far, and my little schnoz, my nose, touched the very edge of the veil just for a second, and a bee got me instantly on the tip of the nose. So I'm fully in my veil, instant snot bogies running down my face, instant crying, and I'm trapped inside, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I couldn't even get far enough away for the bees to leave me alone. Well, I just this was not a fun day. Wouldn't recommend.
What was it like when you got stung on the eyelid?
Wasn't even that bad.
Didn't swell up too much?
No, I never swell. And the embarrassing thing was I had my students, and it was literally either their first or second class of meeting me, because I teach beekeeping as well. We walked into the apiary. We were far away from the bees because none of us had suits on, and I was explaining how we shouldn't, we don't go near the bees without a suit and at least a veil. Do as I say, not as I do. And we walked around, and I kid you not, a bee must have just been on its flight path and just went straight and stung me straight on the eye. And they all freaked out, and I was like, it'll be fine. This is their first foray into beekeeping, and their teacher gets stung on the eye. I was like, it'll be.
I like to do as I say, not as I do.
Oh, that's my.
Did the one on the nose hurt a lot?
The funny thing is, I don't particularly remember the pain. I just remember that instant, when it just throws your whole nasal, just the snot and the...
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
You don't swell, but everything just...
It was just anything to do with the nose and having,
Yeah, it affected your sinuses just like that.
Yeah, it was, and I was trapped in there, that feeling of, you can't do anything, and I'm like, inside the veil. Oh, it was so bad. Yeah, it's not a good day.
All right, before I let you go, is there any other words of wisdom that you would love to leave with our listeners?
I feel like they probably already know the things, but the one thing that I always teach all my hobby beekeepers is cool, calm, and collected. And it's very much a learned behavior, like you sort of talked a little bit about before about bees walking on us. And it's that getting over that, I shouldn't say fear. I mean, you're allowed to be afraid of them, but it's that, what's it called? Maybe desensitization might be the word. Like the more you go into your hives calmly and slowly, the more you realize, like you say, they're not out to get you. They don't want to sting you. It's sort of learning with them rather than sort of do as I say kind of thing. Yeah, cool, calm, and collected is what I teach my beekeeping students. Yeah.
The 3 C's. I like it.
Yeah.
Sarah Cross, hey, thanks. It's been a lot of fun.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me. Very cool.
Thanks again for joining us here on Bee Love Beekeeping, presented by Man Lake. Remember right now to follow or subscribe and share this podcast. Also, a quick shout out to Vita Bee Health for their support. Vita's varroa control range of products includes Apistan, Apigard, and now Varoxan, extended release oxalic acid strips. Thanks, guys. And remember, if you're not just in it for the honey or the money, you're in it for the love. See you next week.